Welcome to Trigger Warning with your host, Chris Brumbles. Are you tired of the professional liars of fake news and far-left radicals? Are you ready for truth and common sense? The insanity and divisiveness of political correctness and identity politics have no place here. So welcome to Trigger Warning, where free speech is free speech, not racism. There are no participation trophies, so if your mind is weak, grab your binky, head to your safe space. Consider this your trigger warning.
Hello and good afternoon, Northwest Oregon, and welcome to Trigger Warning, the show that rejects political correctness, left-wing nutjob middle-class and job-killing policies, while embracing truth, common sense, sanity, and good old American values. Now, I still believe that we are the land of the free and the home of the brave, even though we have had an ongoing raging war declared on our country by far left-wing Marxist cowards who do everything that they can to erase the results of the Revolutionary War and to implant their own twisted history to undermine all of the greatness that has come from our country and all the achievements she has accomplished. If not for the United States of America, the whole world would have been enslaved long ago. The radical Marxists, with the help of the lamestream media, big tech, corporations, and other traitors, will continue in their attempt to rewrite history and destroy us from within. But we will prevail, and eventually, with the help of our Creator, we will arise victorious in our endeavors to remain free. Because liberty is popular, and chains are antithetical to who we are. This country was only possible because of divine intervention, and with God's help, we will rise and remain. With God on our side, no one can stand against us. The invasion of Marxists in this country will eventually be crushed for the insanity that it is. Human nature, along with common sense, will win the day. Well, now, it seems that President Trump has been vindicated, and the Marxists at the Capitol in D.C. who pushed for an illegal and unconstitutional impeachment of a U.S. citizen, which they have no authority to try, failed again and were left with mud in their faces as they politicized the impeachment process in an attempt to distance themselves from possible future competition for the office of president from Donald J. Trump. This is the top 5 most asinine things I have ever heard of, even from the Democrat Party. They are so vile and vitriol, so narcissistic, that they have done nothing for years except divide the nation and plunder us. The Constitution does not allow for impeachment of it does allow for impeachment of a president, but he must have committed treason or high crimes and misdemeanors. Oh, and by the way, you can't impeach a former president who has already served his term because you don't like him or you don't want to run against him in a future election. With this precedent and the hatred that the left has for America and everything American, who knows, the morons may go back and try to impeach George Washington or Thomas Jefferson next week. Sounds insane? Well, the elected employees that are running this country, into the ground that is, resemble that remark. You can't dismiss the rules in the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land, and decide to let a senator be the judge instead of the requirement of the Chief Justice. The entrenched Democrats in Washington, D.C. are so used to violating the Constitution that they believe that the Constitution bends to their will. They believe that the Constitution says what they decide it says. Wrong. We do not elect kings, and y'all do have rules to obey. If you violate those rules, you have no legitimacy, and that is where Congress is. They have made themselves illegitimate and worthless. We need to clean house in 2022, and I believe that we will. This farce impeachment process violated due process. They had no jurisdiction to try a civilian, and they had no case. There was no crime committed. So 4 presidents have been impeached in our history, with none being convicted. Andrew Johnson was the first president to ever be impeached, followed by Bill Clinton, and the other 2 were, yeah, you guessed it, Donald J. Trump. And one while he was a civilian. Impeachment has traditionally been a measure of last resort and very rare. But now that the far-left radical fringe in the Democratic Party have weaponized and politicized it, who knows? We could see an impeachment every time they don't like someone running against them. Since they think they can impeach a civilian who has already left office, maybe they will impeach an enemy who hasn't even been elected yet. Makes about as much sense. I want you to remember the turncoats in the Republican Party that decided to vote to convict Donald Trump and hold them accountable when they run for future elections. The stupid seven, I call them, that helped the enemy in this witch hunt are Richard Burr from my home state of North Carolina, Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, Susan Collins from Maine, of course the perpetual rhino Mitt Romney from Utah, Ben Sass from, I think that's how you spell it, Sass, from Nebraska, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, and Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania. Of course, Mitch McConnell voted to acquit, but in an attempt to sit on the fence, came out condemning President Trump anyways. Some people just love the camera. The prosecutor in this fictional case came out calling President Trump the insider-in-chief. Can a president even incite a riot in his own country? I'm not sure, but according to several lawyers that I've listened to and talked to, it's not even legally possible. It doesn't even matter that he didn't even put out any language that even remotely compared with some of the things the left has said. We have this thing called free speech, which is the protection of unpopular speech. You simply do not need to protect popular speech. This is just a continuation of the goal of the left to destroy the First Amendment and to divide our country. The funny thing is that once again, Donald Trump is filling slots in the news cycle. This cracks me up. This man is hated so much by the left, and the left is so undisciplined that he gets billions of dollars worth of publicity no matter what he does. They took the time and energy to shut down his social media sites during the election as to violate his free speech, and already they can't stand not venting their hatred toward him. This is exactly how he won the first election or part of the reason, with hardly spending any money. They are putty in his hands. So several Republicans are considering a run for president in 2024. They are Nikki Haley, the former governor of South Carolina, Senator Ted Cruz again, Josh Hawley, Marco Rubio, and Rand Paul. The only eligible one in the crowd that is constitutional is Rand Paul, in my opinion, and I don't think he can win. I like Ted Cruz as a senator, but he is not eligible to be president, and neither is the putz Marco Rubio. Neither one of these senators are natural-born citizens. I suppose that they think that Obozo got away with it, and so did our current vice president. I reckon they thought they'd take another shot at it too. This is very sad for our country. There's a reason that our founders wanted the president to be a natural-born citizen, so that they would be loyal to our country and only to our country. They did not want someone having dual loyalties. They didn't think it was conducive to doing the best business for this country. Since the lamestream media and tech companies have decided to jointly destroy all truth in America and rid our country of free speech by blocking anyone and anything that doesn't agree with their insane ideology, conservative sites have been on the rise. The Epoch Times, has seen a rise in readership by 421% since December of 2019. The Gateway Pundit has seen huge gains, and BitChute, the right-wing alternative to YouTube, has recently went from 13.9 to 44 million viewers. Pretty soon, conservatives might actually have a voice again, and hopefully the left wing would-be destroyers of free speech will go bankrupt. Today I have Jim Hoffman in the studio, and our guest is going to be Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. Matt is co-founder of Liberty Counsel and a lawyer. Liberty Counsel is a Christian ministry that proclaims, advocates, supports, advances, and defends the good news that God, in the person of Jesus Christ, paid the penalty for our sins and offers forgiveness and eternal life to all who accept him as Lord and Savior. Liberty Counsel has been around since 1989. We'll be right back with Matt Staver.
Hello, all you triglets out there listening to Trigger Warning. This is where we reject political correctness and left-wing insanity, but instead, we embrace truth and common sense. You know, there is only one gun group in Oregon that will not compromise on your rights. and that is Oregon Firearms Federation. With all the trickery and evil bills that come from the supermajority in Salem, you need a friend who will keep you informed of these nefarious plans to plunder your rights. If you have not done so, don't delay. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts. It will cost you nothing, and you will get the truth on what's going on in Salem. There is absolutely no common sense in giving up your rights, so sign up for our email alerts, and if you want to donate, we won't complain, and it will be put to good use. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun group in the state of Oregon, at OregonFirearms.org. Sign up today. Northwest Observer, another great news source that tells it like it is. Give it a try. I'm sure you will be impressed. It's time that we have truth in the news. So go to Northwest Observer and give Redoubt News a shot, and you have nothing to lose and only facts to gain. Now, back to Trigger Warning, where we reject political correctness and left-wing nut job policies, and we embrace truth and common sense. With your host, Chris Brumbles.
Welcome back, Columbia County. We are honored to have a great guest on the show today, Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel. Good afternoon, Matt. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, I'm honored for you taking the time to be here. Could you tell the audience a little bit about Liberty Counsel? I've told them what was on your website, but could you tell a little bit more what y'all do?
Sure. Liberty Counsel, we founded it in 1989, and it's a national religious liberty organization advancing religious freedom, the sanctity of human life and the family in courts and all across the country. And we have been leading the nation on the litigation against these COVID restrictions on churches, and just recently won a Supreme Court victory striking down the no worship order in California as recently as February 6th.
Awesome, and thank you for that, by the way. So as someone who fights to save our country and pass liberty to my posterity, also, I know about the commitment involved. What was the determining factor that made you feel like you needed to get in this fight?
Well, when I was a pastor, I began to get involved in the pro-life issues, and I was invited to watch a pro-life video. I didn't know anything about that, but it shocked me about what was happening in our own country regarding the destruction of innocent human babies in the womb, and that all began with the United States Supreme Court. And so the pro-life movement was an intersection between faith and law and policy, and I began to get involved in that area of law. The very first case that I ever read when I was still a pastor was Roe versus Wade, the 1973 Supreme Court decision. One thing led to another, and the Lord ultimately began to change my direction to go into law, to use that as a ministry, and consequently that's what we've been doing when we created Liberty Counsel, to provide pro bono or free legal representation and consultation on a wide variety of issues to advance our freedom, particularly religious freedom and life in particular. And our website has more information for those who are unfamiliar, or even those who are familiar. It has a lot of resources. It's lc.org, very simple, just lc.org.
Oh, okay. That's writing that down myself right now. Well, I do get a lot of mail from y'all. I bought some of your books, and thank you for that. I see that y'all have been fighting quite a few battles to help churches and pastors.
Right.
And I was wondering if maybe you could tell us about one of the worst cases you've had to deal with and some of the things that have gone on.
Sure, we have several, quite a few egregious situations. The most recent win that we got at California was on February 6th at the U.S. Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court struck down the total ban on worship that had been in effect essentially except for 48 days since March 19, 2020, except for 48 days where only 100 people could actually congregate in a church. There has been a no worship ban. Not a single person can go into the church and have in-person worship. And we're still litigating in this case because we've got other restrictions to strike down, but the no worship ban is now gone. In that particular case, the churches that we represent about 130 to 40 churches in California. And the lead church is Harvest Rock Church in Pasadena, California. the pastor got a letter from the criminal prosecutor of Pasadena threatening daily criminal charges and fines against him, the staff, and anybody who comes into the church to worship. I mean, that is absolutely outrageous. So that case is still going on, but we got a great reprieve with the no worship ban being struck down. Another one is in Illinois. In fact, it is pending right now at the U.S. Supreme Court. It involves Romanian churches that shut down early on and then began to open when Illinois, like these other states, allowed liquor stores and abortion clinics and a lot of other activities to be exempted as, quote, essential services or activities, but not churches. So they began to open, and a lot of things happened against that church. They, first of all, blocked all the parking of the neighbors that were parking on the street in front of their houses. It's in a residential neighborhood in Chicago. And they towed the neighbors' cars. Then they sent letters to the neighbors saying that the reason why you can't park in front of your house on Sunday and that your cars are towed is because this church, they gave the name of the church, is violating the governor's orders, which was only allowing 10 people to worship at a time. And we were concerned that they would become violent against the church, but in fact it was the other way around. They knew the church didn't use street parking. The mayor didn't know that, and so Lori Lightfoot sent out 5 police cars to then block the entrance to the private parking lot of the church just across the street. That didn't stop the Romanian immigrants that are here in America because they love freedom and they love America. And so that aggravated the mayor more, and so she sent criminal charges against them for disorderly conduct for having more than 10 people. And when that didn't stop them, she sent 2 letters, the first one from the Public Health Department and the second one from the Public Health Department threatening what's called summary abatement, which in Illinois is literally destruction of the building. So in Illinois, they literally have threatened destruction of the entire building for having more than 10 people to worship. So that case now is pending before the U.S. Supreme Court.
And will you be litigating it?
Yes, I've been litigating all of these, and
wow.
I've argued a number of these church cases at the courts of appeal since our very first case in Florida last year when the first pastor in America was arrested for holding church, and that was a service that was held on the last Sunday of March. Remember, that was very early in this whole process. And he was arrested, he was booked, had a mugshot, taken to jail, and he had to bond out. Fortunately, our representation of him ultimately, a couple of days later, freed up the entire state of Florida with an order from the governor that declared churches and attendance at churches essential activity, and then overrode all the local ordinances or orders to the contrary.
Well, I'm with Oregon Firearms Federation, so I fight for the Second Amendment a lot, because I believe that without the second, we're going to lose all the other ones anyways. But it looks to me like the First Amendment is under just as big of attack as the Second Amendment. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I agree with that.
Yes.
Certainly, I agree. And that's why they wanted the Second Amendment from the very beginning, so that we could maintain our First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, free exercise of religion.
And the funny thing is, so there's 5 rights protected by the First Amendment. Of course, religious liberty, freedom of speech, press, assemble, redress grievances. They put religious liberty first. Do you think there's a reason why they did that?
Oh, I think so, because, I mean, when you look back at the founders, they came here for religious freedom. You go back even to, the Mayflower Compact with Christopher Columbus, and you look at some of the early settlers, even during the Puritan time frame, and then bring it up to the early founding of America. That was to create a beachhead for religious freedom, because they didn't have that in their home country.
Yeah, and prevent a state church.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't want the government to dictate that they had to pay tithes to a particular church or attend a particular church. They wanted freedom of conscience, freedom of worship. And that's why we have this in the very first sentence of the First Amendment.
Yeah, you talked about governor orders earlier. The governor orders are highly unconstitutional, and not only to the U.S. Constitution, but I don't know if you've heard, I'm sure you've heard of our governor in Oregon. We've tried to recall her 7 times now. And it violates several amendments in the Oregon Constitution and as well as statutes. And I mean, they've given the governors powers to legislate. I mean, what happened to separation of powers?
Well, that is the real problem, and we're working
Yes.
with a number of state legislators and others around the country to pass legislation that would forever prohibit these governors from using this kind of enormous unchecked executive power. Usually these executive orders or the executive power has been in the past used for very, very limited times for national disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, fires, something like that. But it's very focused. Sometimes it's only a certain place within a city or a state or a county, and it's very, very short. So whether they have curfew or whatever, it's a short period of time because all the electricity is out or there's riots and so forth, but it's very, very short. These executive orders have gone on and on and on and on and on, and now we're nearly a year into this.
Yes.
And they set aside existing statutes such as masking and other kinds of things as though they just don't exist. They don't even acknowledge that the Constitution exists in most of these cases.
Right, and it's kind of. So I'm going to just straight up ask you. I've had several pastors on this program before. Have you ever heard of Matthew Trewhella?
Yes.
Oh, have you read his book, Doctrine of Lesser Magistrates?
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay, good. It's a good book. I've given it to our sheriff, and I've given it to some of our. Next thing, I'm going to order some more and give them to pastors. But do you think that the big majority of churches and pastors have failed us by shutting down in the first place?
Oh, I think so. I think all of the ones that we represent, they shut down for a couple of weeks or a few weeks because nobody knew. You got all this threat and all this scare tactics and what we now know is misinformation, and they didn't know. And so they were originally given a lie. It's only 2 weeks. Well, we can handle 2 weeks, and we can do something different. We'll just be cautious. But then as a couple of weeks passed and it got extended for another 2 weeks, they began to look around and say, well, they've got abortion clinics open, liquor stores open, big box centers open, grocery stores are packed.
Yep.
But churches aren't. And so these pastors said, enough is enough. And so they have stood up against a lot of pressure, including jail, criminal threats. Enormous fines have accumulated against churches in California for opening. And yet at the same time, let's go back to Florida. Because of our case that was the first pastor in the country to be arrested, April 1, Florida is completely free. No restrictions on churches. They've not had restrictions on churches since then. But some churches are still cooperating online, and others took months and months to open up, even though they had zero restrictions. Right now, we just won the total worship ban in California. And there was an article in the newspaper. Some black pastors said, well, we're going to continue to follow CDC guidelines, and we're going to continue to remain online. Look, if their church is only a podcast that can be downloaded on a smart tablet, and they're willing to allow the government to dictate their form and manner of worship and all the different details, then probably their church, frankly, is not essential. And I think, frankly, what we're seeing are people say, you know what, this church that I attended, I'm very disappointed in it because it's been very weak. It's shown no leadership at all. And I'm going to one of these other churches where the pastors and the church leadership has taken a stand and are opening. What we have seen and what we predicted have actually come to pass, and it's supported by the studies.
Yes.
When you lock people down and you threaten them with your job, or they lose their jobs and they lose their social infrastructure, domestic violence, child abuse, that all increases exponentially. You have an increase of substance abuse, alcohol, legal and illegal drugs. Depression skyrockets, it's off the charts, anxiety, and suicide. And that includes the young people as well when the schools remain closed. So there is a serious problem that's happening because of all of these restrictions and the lockdowns, and the churches, instead of being open and being the hospital to the hurting and setting an example, many of them unfortunately have closed. We represent a lot of them who've been brave, who've led the pack, but unfortunately there's a lot that have failed us.
Yes. Do you think that 501c3s have anything to do with that?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think from what I'm talking, we've worked with thousands of pastors just on this issue, and the information that we have is, well, we don't want to be a bad witness. Well, it's a bad witness to just simply say to people, you can't sing or you can't come here. Everything's online. Look, my parents-in-law do not have high speed or do not have the kind of tablet that you can watch online. We represented a church in Virginia. They got criminally charged on Palm Sunday for having more than 10 people, had 16 people in a 293-seat sanctuary. On Palm Sunday, this church is in a place where cell service and internet are almost non-existent. They don't have online options.
Right.
And, we represent churches like the church where the pastor got arrested.
Yes.
The last Sunday of March. They got arrested on Monday for having that last Sunday service. That church has a tilapia fish farm and an organic garden inside the church, and they feed free of charge 900 families each week. Now, you can't do that online.
Right. Well, I tell you what, I thank you very much again for coming on this show. We're coming to the break now, but I want everybody to go on lc.org and check out some of their literature and and all the other stuff that's on there. Thank you very much, Matt, for being on the show today, and God bless, man.
Oh, God bless. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Hello, all you triglets out there listening to Trigger Warning. This is where we reject political correctness and left-wing insanity, but instead, we embrace truth and common sense. There is only one gun group in Oregon that will not compromise on your rights, and that is Oregon Firearms Federation. With all the trickery and evil bills that come from the supermajority in Salem, you need a friend who will keep you informed of these nefarious plans to plunder your rights. If you have not done so, don't delay. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts. It will cost you nothing, and you will get the truth on what's going on in Salem. There is absolutely no common sense in giving up your rights, so sign up for our email alerts, and if you want to donate, we won't complain, and it will be put to good use. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun group in the state of Oregon, at OregonFirearms.org. Sign up today. Northwest Observer, another great news source that tells it like it is. Give it a try. I'm sure you will be impressed. It's time that we have truth in the news. So go to Northwest Observer and give Redoubt News a shot, and you have nothing to lose and only facts to gain. Now, back to Trigger Warning, where we reject political correctness and left-wing nut job policies, and we embrace truth and common sense. With your host, Chris Brumbles.
Welcome back, Columbia County. We just finished up with Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel, and I do encourage you to go to his website, lc.org. These are the people who are fighting to defend the churches, to defend the First Amendment, and to maintain America. So what'd you think about that guy there, Jim? Jim Hoffman, by the way, is in the audience.
Oh, I absolutely loved him. I'm a Christian. I'm proud to admit it.
Yep.
I was 45 years old when I found my way home to the Lord, and I'll tell you what, life has been so much better. So what Matt's doing with Liberty Counsel, I just applaud their efforts, because we need more people to stand up. As far as Christians go, we are considered a second-rate citizen now.
Yeah. So we were talking at the break about the Trump parlor thing. You want to tell the people about that?
Yes. I heard a story on Fox News, and I'll say again that I don't watch a lot of Fox News. There's only a few people that I do. Anyway, on one of the segments, I heard that Parler has offered Trump a 40% stake in the company if he would come on board.
Yeah.
And I think that would be wonderful.
Wouldn't it be, the censorship going around it's dangerous. And like I said before, it reminds me of Nazi Germany. It really does.
Yeah.
And the left really should be more concerned about this because it will affect them eventually.
Yes, it will.
This is Marxism. That's all it is. And they have to shut people down. They have to take your guns because obviously they want to destroy our Constitution. They can't do that while we're armed.
That's right.
And they're never getting mine, by the way.
Not mine either. We can exchange we can exchange injections if they want, but they're not taking them.
Right. So I was listening to this guy. I can't remember his name. He's from North Carolina, same place as I. And he was the black man who protested back in the '60s. I believe his last name is Henderson. And I was listening to him the other day on TV, talking about the censorship, how it scares him, and he fights that too because it's the inversion or the opposite of Jim Crow laws, only it's against whites instead of blacks.
Right.
And would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, I would agree with that. It's anymore. I said earlier that when I was on Facebook, they deactivated my account. Mm-hmm. And it was because I was a proud conservative.
Yes.
But I also went a little bit farther, and I had fun with it. I used to tell liberals on Facebook that I'm a liberal's worst nightmare because I'm a Bible-thumping, gun-toting, redneck veteran. Any one of those things would make a liberal mad. Put them all together, and they have a tendency to piddle a little.
Yeah. So I read this article on February 2nd. And it said that the Ethiopian government has just recently massacred 750 Christians. I see that coming to our country here because, like I said, it does remind me of Nazi Germany. What's going on?
That's right.
So it's just crazy, man.
They're trying to shut down everything that we know and love. They want to take our guns. They want to tell us what we can say, when we can say it, and how we can say it. Because Lord knows we don't want to make anybody offended.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I remember all the old people. By the way. That's right. I remember all the old people telling me, "Sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you."
Right.
Well, today you say the wrong thing, and you're going to get one of these millennials laying down in the middle of the street and start crying because they've been offended.
So, I really think people need to wake up instead of being woke. What do you think?
Oh, they absolutely do. People need to wake up and realize, you know what, we can actually be on the same side. But I'll tell you, I've got a way to fix part of our problems, and I've been preaching this for the last 20 years. What we need to do is we need term limits and no retirement package. I mean, right now, you get a congressman or a senator, gets elected, they only stay for one term, they're out, and they'll tell you, we don't get a retirement. Well, no, they don't, not until they turn 55. And then at the age of 55, they get their retirement. So don't let them lie to you. I mean, right now, it's what we should have in office is we should have people that want to try to make a difference.
Yep.
But then when they're done, they need to get out there and be productive instead of sucking off our social programs.
I don't know about. It depends on what you mean, make a difference. I think they should leave their ideology out of it and just follow the Constitution.
Well, they should do that.
Yes.
And do you remember Jack Abramoff?
No.
He was one of the biggest lobbyists. Actually, I think he was the biggest lobbyist in D.C.
Yeah.
And when myself and a few other people started talking about term limits, he came out and says, no, you can't have term limits. That'll destroy everything. And then he gets arrested and goes to federal prison.
Yeah.
When he gets out, I was listening to him talk in an interview, and he said, the only reason why I didn't want to see term limits, and he said, let me be completely straightforward. You need term limits. But the reason he said he didn't want to see him then is because it would take him 2 to 3 terms to get somebody to vote the way he wanted them to.
Right.
So, and that's what I say. And when I say all elected officials should be bound by term limits,
I call them elected employees.
That's right.
I'd appreciate it if you did too.
There is one person or one position, I should say, that I don't think should have term limits, and that's a sheriff.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. The sheriff's supposed to be close to the people and protect the people.
And then think of this. When we elect somebody, and say here in Oregon, and we send them to D.C. to do our bidding, to do our goodwill, whatever we think needs to be done, why is D.C. paying their salaries? Shouldn't we here in Oregon, if they have been elected...
Are you sure that's going on?
That's what people have been trying to do for a long time. I've been part of that movement.
I didn't know that D.C. paid them.
Yes, D.C. pays them.
I'll be darned.
They get to vote on their own pay raises. Get that. Can I do that? I would hey, I'm just a disabled vet.
How would you vote?
I would love to vote on a new pay raise for me.
Yeah, that's funny. And so, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about Poseidon for a minute. As a veteran, I'm a veteran, you're a veteran. Are you as disgusted as I am that the traitor Beijing Poseidon has embedded in the White House? I mean, just embedded Marxists in the form of communists and jihadists all through his cabinet.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's worse than Obozo. Was, and he was bad. Jimmy Carter, he's worse than Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
We've got to stop this man. Here's what scares me.
I think he sides whatever's put in front of him. I think he's got handlers.
Yeah, he does. He absolutely has handlers, and that's why he's in there. But this is the part that scares me. And we were all joking after he won the election, saying, I give him 6 months, he'll step down, Kamala Harris will take over as president. Well, I've changed my opinion just a little bit about that. I think that he'll last 2 years, and then he will step down and let Kamala Harris take over. And this is the reason. According to the Constitution, you can be president for 10 years.
What?
Yes. So if you can be president, if she can step in the last 2 years, she's still eligible to be reelected twice.
I don't think you're right on that, boss.
No, I am right. Check it out.
Because, we'll check that out later. Kamala Harris is a real sore spot with me. That chick is not even, in my opinion, she's not even a citizen, let alone a natural-born citizen. Now, first Obozo got in. He wasn't a natural-born citizen. Right. And, nobody had the cojones to bring that up, I guess because of his skin tone. And then we had an election, last time when the first time Trump ran, we had 3 people who weren't natural-born citizens: Ted Cruz, Bobby Jindal, and they were Republicans, by the way. Right. And who was the third one? Rubio. None of them. I checked out their history. They're not natural-born citizens. Their parents didn't. You have to have 2 parent citizens when you're born to be a natural-born citizen, and there's a reason for all that we don't have time to go into. But Kamala Harris is, I don't even think she was qualified to be a senator. No. So this is a big setup.
She came from a slave-owning family.
Yeah. I don't know what that's got to do with her citizenship. I mean,
it just irritates me because she's one of those types that wants to rub everything, your whiteness, into your nose, into your face.
Right.
So that's the reason why I brought that up.
Yeah. So we have. Did you watch Super Bowl?
I admit that I glanced at it from time to time. Did not watch the whole game.
Yeah. Well, I haven't watched football in 4 years, but I watched the Super Bowl, and the reason I watched it, I was hoping that Cry Brady would lose, but it didn't work out that way. So Tampa Bay Mayor Jane Castor threatened that anyone going to the Super Bowl not wearing a mask, she would have the cops hunt them down. And then you see her at the Super Bowl not wearing a mask.
Of course. All politicians seem to do that. Well, I should say
these
not
people
all.
Really think we elect kings, don't we?
Yes, they do. Kings and queens, and we are their servants.
I don't think so.
I don't either, but they think that.
So, how do you feel about Trump getting acquitted at that illegal trial?
Oh, that was absolutely wonderful. It should have been that way. I mean, what are they going after Trump for? He's out of office. The Constitution, it specifically states a sitting president. Right. Not somebody that's out of office.
And it also says that the Chief Justice has to be the judge.
That's right.
There's a reason why he wasn't the judge, I reckon. So, in 897 AD, have you heard about the cadaver trial? There was I can't remember the name of the Pope, but the Pope actually dug up another Pope and put him on trial after his death.
Remember that.
Is that where we're going?
It could be. What are they going to dig up George Washington next?
And then we have this, what I call the stupid 7 plus McConnell, who betrayed the president. And, that's funny because these people are getting backlash now.
They are.
Let's see if I can find it in my notes.
Well, you got Liz Cheney, who got censured from Wyoming.
Oh, you know what? I got a call from Idaho, and my buddy says, I really want to find out how my representative voted on that. Do you know how to? I said, let me look into this. I looked into it. Guess what? They did a secret ballot, so the people wouldn't know how they voted. And she won big time, by the way.
Really?
Oh, it was like, I can't remember the exact number. It was like 165 to 43 or something. And so these people just, you know, they don't want you. They want you to just be good little robots and do whatever they say and not know how they vote and and all that. But anyways, when we got about 30 seconds here before our break, and then we're gonna come back and talk about guns. Are you ready for this? Do you have anything you'd like to say in this last 30 seconds before we take a break?
Well, yeah, and we're going to be talking about guns. That's one of my favorite subjects. I love shooting them. I do a lot of things with it.
Let's hope that you can do that here in the future without being a felon. So, folks, we're going to take a break. We're talking to Jim Hoffman right now. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. So, see you in a minute.
Hello, all you triglets out there listening to Trigger Warning. This is where we reject political correctness and left-wing insanity, but instead, we embrace truth and common sense. You know, there is only one gun group in Oregon that will not compromise on your rights, and that is Oregon Firearms Federation. With all the trickery and evil bills that come from the supermajority in Salem, you need a friend who will keep you informed of these nefarious plans to plunder your rights. If you have not done so, don't delay. Go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts. It will cost you nothing, and you will get the truth on what's going on in Salem. There is absolutely no common sense in giving up your rights, so sign up for our email alerts, and if you want to donate, we won't complain, and it will be put to good use. Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun group in the state of Oregon, at OregonFirearms.org. Sign up today. Northwest Observer, another great news source that tells it like it is. Give it a try. I'm sure you will be impressed. It's time that we have truth in the news. So go to Northwest Observer and give Redoubt News a shot, and you have nothing to lose and only facts to gain. Now, back to Trigger Warning, where we reject political correctness and left-wing nut job policies, and we embrace truth and common sense. With your host, Chris Brumbles.
Welcome back, Columbia County. We've just had a pretty good discussion with Matt Staver and now Jim Hoffman. Jim Hoffman's in the studio, and he has a couple announcements he'd like to make.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, one of the things that I'm doing this year is we've got a big concealed carry class coming up in April on the coast. And if you're interested in getting both Oregon and Utah, I'll give you a phone number you can call here in a little bit. But another event that I've got and that I'm really excited about is in August. And it's a 4-day event. We are going to have communication training, comms is what we call it, medical training. Those will most likely be done on the same day. Then there'll be a land navigation course where you will be taught how to read a compass, read a map. And then in the afternoon, you'll be sent out to see what you've learned. Another day, we are going to be learning how to clear buildings, clear rooms. When I was in the military, I was sent up to Berlin in Germany because they had an area that was called Cement City. And that was some of the training that we got to take up there. Also rappelling out of helicopters, which was a blast. But unfortunately, we don't have buildings that we can do that with, but we will rope areas off so it'll be like a building, I guess. Uh-huh. But then the fourth and final day will be the weapons training. And the guy that we have come up and do the weapons training is unbelievable. His name's Scott Turner. He owns Northwest Self-Defense Education. He's a master in Krav Maga. This guy, he trains NRA instructors. He trains just about anybody that has anything to do with a gun. You'll see he'll have his foot in there. Anyway, he comes up every year and he does this for us. Great guy. We've done day shoots. We've done night shoots. Usually we start off in the morning time with handguns, and then afternoon we do long guns. You bring 250 rounds for each weapon you're going to shoot, and then we go back to camp. We sit around, we eat, have a few beers, sit around a campfire, and talk about what we learned and go, ow, because we are hurting. It's a lot of work to do.
Nothing goes better than beer and guns.
That's hey, we put the guns away when the beer comes out, and nobody gets drunk.
I also want to let Columbia County know that we're still working on Apple Appleseed project. We're going to have it here in Columbia County. We went up and looked at the field the other day, and we're thinking it's going to be around June, but I'll let y'all know, in the future when we get the contract signed and everything. But I tell you what, Appleseed, if you think you can shoot, I challenge you to come try win a rifleman patch, because you will walk away being shooting groups the size of dimes. All my daughters and my wife has done it. It's awesome. It's better training than I had in the military. But so let me give you this phone number. If you're interested in any of these things, you can contact. My name's Chris Brumbles. I'm the Columbia County Coordinator for Oregon Firearms Federation. You can reach me at 503-263-5830. And if you're interested in any of these events, just call this number, leave a message, a detailed message how to get a hold of you, and I will get a hold of you. And if you need to get a hold of Jim, I'll send your information to him. So anyways, that's coming up. So the number again is 503-263-5830. So I want to talk a little bit. We only got about 6.5 minutes left, so I want to get this out. We need to talk about the crazy Oregon gun laws that are going on. I mean, they're trying to get rid of the preemption statute now. If they did that, you'd have a different doggone gun law in every city. It makes absolutely no sense. They're trying to make CHLs worthless. They want to double the price of them. They want to make them worthless. In fact, see, that's that 25. They got this bill out, HB 2543. That's so they can deny fire. If you go to buy a handgun or a rifle, whatever, they can delay their background check forever, so you can never get it. They have another one coming up on February 22nd, SB 554, to kill the preemption statute. And I believe that one, it's been a while since I read it, but I believe that one also doubles the fee for CHLs. That bill is so dangerous, it is not even funny. You would not be able to go with a CHL. You wouldn't be able to go to, excuse me, a public building or an airport. But it's not even that. If you're next to an airport, you'd be a felon. So you can't even drop your people off at the airport and then drive around the block. You'd be committing a felony, and it's just crazy. So I want to tell everybody, we need the Republicans to stand up again, and we need them to walk out. And I'm going to tell you who you need to call. For the House Minority Leader, you need to call Christine Drazen at 503-986-1439. It's 503-986-1439. That's her Capitol phone number. Let's shut it down. And you can email her at rep.christinedrazen at OregonLegislature.gov. That's .gov. And the other guy you need to get a hold of is the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Fred Girod. So his email is sen.Fred Girod, that's Girod, at OregonLegislature.gov. His phone number is 503-986-1709. Let's keep calling these people. Let's shut down their phones. Let's shut down their emails and tell them, walk out, because they have absolutely no say. We have no choice. And I mean, the Democrats are going to get everything they want. They're not allowing the people to come in and be part of the process, which the Constitution says is supposed to happen.
That's right.
They think that they can just make any law they want. So Republicans must walk out. Encourage these people to do that, please. So
I'm kind of going through withdrawal because I can't go down there and complain and yell and scream and tell them why they're stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
So speaking of, I'll come back to guns in a minute, but speaking of stupid seven, so Senator Burr of North Carolina is now being censored by the Republicans of North Carolina. Matt Gaetz is going after McConnell for trying to purge Trumpism. So they're trying to purge Trumpism. So they're trying to purge patriotism, the love of this country. I mean,
Democrats
America first
forever.
Well, McConnell's not a Democrat.
No, he's kind of
rhino.
He's a rhino.
And
he's a little farther than a rhino.
So Republican Representative Adam Kiesinger, is that his name? Kiesinger or whatever it is.
I'm not sure the proper.
His own family now have come out with a letter and are chastising him for voting to impeach Trump. So it's good that there's some kickback to these people. But probably the craziest, as crazy as the gun bills are in Oregon, have you heard of H.R. 127?
I started reading it. I have not finished it.
Oh boy, that thing is nuts. They want you to. I don't think it'll ever pass. I don't think. I mean, the only way it'll pass is if the Republican Senate just totally sells us out, which is possible.
No.
But H.R. 127, sponsored by Sheila Jackson Lee. She pre-filed it on January 14th, and I'm following that bill. I haven't got any updates, so I don't think it's gone past the committee yet, but it may have. So it's called the Sabik Shika Firearm Licensing and Registration Scheme. I call it a scheme because that's what it is. And you know, folks, what happens when you register your guns? It ain't too far till the boxcars come.
Right.
So they want this would require you to license every firearm you've ever had, even if it was given to your grandpa 40 years ago. They want to know the make, the model, the serial number, the owner of the firearm, the date the firearm was acquired, like you can remember any of that, where the firearm is, where it's going to be stored. They want to notice specifically identifying any other person who will use this firearm and any time which it will be loaned. And they want it to put this on the internet so everybody can read it. So your burglar now could just look on the internet, see where your gun is, what you have, and say, I think I'll rob this guy today, and go steal his firearm.
Well, yeah, that kind of goes along the lines with a reporter out of the Oregonian. Yeah. I remember when I was living in Eastern Oregon, and Sheriff John Trumbo, I knew the man, he was a good man. He wanted to get the addresses for all of the people that had concealed carry licenses.
Yeah. So yeah, it would require they want the contents of the database to be accessible to all members of the public, all federal, state, and local law enforcement, the military, all state and local governments. So this isn't an invasion of privacy, is it? For a right. So, anyways, I'm just saying there's some crazy gun laws out there. I will not obey any of them. I will not comply with any of them. And I'm going to just end the segment with saying what Matt Shea said last week or the week before, whenever it was. He said that the time to protect your guns is when they come for your neighbors. Yep. And I think it's going to happen, folks. Well, thank you, Jim, for being on the show. Yeah. And I got to say, folks, let's remember to keep Columbia County in particular, sane and normal. We'll see you next week on Trigger Warning. God bless.
You've been listening to Trigger Warning with Chris Brumbles. You can email your comments to kohi.radio@gmail.com. And listen again next time for Trigger Warning with Chris Brumbles.